Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Jon Venus and today I'm joined with my brother, Leo. You guys probably remember him. He's been featured on this channel a bunch of times. He is a medical student and in a couple months you'll be a doctor.
That's right.
Almost done with medical school. He's spending time here in Spain. I just got back and we're spending Christmas together. It's gonna be amazing. So we're gonna take advantage of this moment and these weeks to make a lot of content for you guys that can benefit you in your health journey, fitness journey, and just knowledge of nutrition and well-being in general. So today we figured we'll talk about something that Leo is actually very well known for speaking about in events, and that is the hierarchy of evidence, basically.
Yeah.
So why don't you explain what that is for people, because this topic is like the most important thing for, you know, no matter what like your goal is. If you want to convince someone of, you know, a certain diet or a certain lifestyle, or just talk about studies in general and your and make your argument and your case stronger, it's really important to know about your sources and your actual evidence that you're using, not only so that people can benefit from the information that you're presenting, but so that it's believable and you know that it's the actual truth, instead of just spreading misinformation like a lot of people do these days in the internet. So it's one of the worst things about the internet, in my opinion, is that so much misinformation is spread. So Leo's gonna be here talking with me today about how to make sure that we pick the right studies and listen to the right information rather than just, you know, listening to whoever blindly.
Yeah, no, and that's thank you so much for having me here. For sure, like you said, it's one of the most important things. I believe this should be taught in all schools, you know, even middle schools, high schools, because it is such an important point in how we form our opinions in life and our belief system. Because like you said, there's so much information out there today. We live in an age where there is an overflow of information, there's an abundance and excess of information, and then sifting through which pieces of information are good and bad is a very difficult job. I guess we'll just jump right into what is the hierarchy of evidence. So in medical school we are taught, basically there are a lot of different types of evidence, different types of studies that we use to form our opinions and to guide our practice. So at the very bottom of the hierarchy we have expert opinion, and so on this pyramid the lowest quality evidence is at the bottom, and the highest quality evidence is at the top. Right. So already you can see expert opinion is the very bottom when it comes to the quality of the evidence.
And let's just remember that the term expert is so loose these days. Everyone calls themselves experts. If you have 1,000 followers on Instagram, all of a sudden you're an expert. Or if you have a YouTube channel, like expert doesn't really mean anything at all. Just because someone even goes through formal nutrition and you know, health training, it doesn't necessarily mean they're experts, because they haven't necessarily taken the steps beyond their studies to really find out the truth and do enough research. So the term expert is so loose, and to me it's not shocking that it comes at the bottom of the pyramid. I'm actually surprised that they acknowledge that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also comes down to, you know, it's a fact of human behavior. Yeah. Every single human, even the most knowledgeable people in the world, will be wrong in a lot of their opinions. There is no such thing as one human being that is correct 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So having human opinion as a very high reliable source just is ludicrous from a scientific perspective. It just does not make sense. And the first mistake actually that most people make in the world of doctors in nutrition is to think that a doctor constitutes a good expert opinion, because and you know, people in general aren't at fault for this. This is a completely rational theory to have in your head, or a belief, because as health experts, and doctors should be expected to know about nutrition, because nutrition is such an important factor in determining people's health. Yeah. You would expect that they would know a lot about nutrition. But the fact of the matter is, in medical school, as a present day medical student, I can tell you guys that we are taught almost nothing at all in nutrition. So every doctor that you see and you ask questions about nutrition will not know any more than your average person, unless he or she has taken the time outside of his or her own training to learn about it.
Yeah, and this is not, so like he's in medical school right now, so he's up to date. This is the current state of the situation. This is not doctors 30 years ago didn't know enough about nutrition. It's not 10 years ago, it's not even 5 years ago. It's right now at this present day. Still to this day, doctors are not trained in nutrition. So, you know, already that makes it really problematic to listen to their advice.
You guys wouldn't believe the stuff I hear. No. In the hospitals, I get asked, where do you get your protein if you're vegan? I've heard doctors say, well, you can't eat carbs because sugars make you fat. You hear all of this kind of misconceptions that you'd get from a random person. So definitely get that out of your mind. Doctors, in general, are not experts in nutrition unless they've taken the time to learn on their own.
Exactly. So who should we listen to then if we can't listen to experts like doctors or psychiatrists, teachers? Like, what is the next step?
So basically that's why we have the documentation of science, and we have research papers, and we have studies being published, so that we can actually look at the evidence we have. And this is unchanging, this is objective, and it's peer reviewed, and people can look into it. So as you go up the hierarchy, you have increasing quality of evidence. So you have case studies, which is basically the scientific version of anecdotal evidence. So you come across an interesting case, you document it, you write about it, you publish it, there you go. That's better than nothing. It's basically a study of n equals 1, so sample size 1. Not the greatest, but it's something. And then after that you have things like cohort studies. You can have retrospective cohort studies looking back in time. You can have prospective cohort studies where you take a group of people and then you look at exposure versus outcome that you're interested in looking at, and you look forward in time. That is a better study design, more higher quality, more reliable. And then as you go up, you have randomized controlled trials, which are very, very good. However, for nutrition, the problem is you have to control the environment. You have to have people in a setting where you can control everything and have a placebo versus a studied group. And for nutrition, that is very hard to do, as most things in nutrition take a very long time to do.
Yeah, it would be so expensive to fund these studies.
It would be a huge expense, and nobody wants to be in a study setting for years and years either.
Yeah, the return of investment of that company when doing that study has to be pretty big for them to do that.
Exactly. And this is a good study design for short-term things such as drugs, medications, stuff where you can see the outcome very, very quickly. But for long-term effects, not the greatest. Then you have things like systematic reviews and meta-analyses, which are at the very top, where you combine studies of the similar topics into a very big study, because it increases the power, increases the cumulative sample size, so that the things that are found in those studies are more likely to be relatable to the actual reality of the relationship between the experimental design and the outcome that you're looking for.
So that is the top pillar, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then there is an extra one above that, and that is listening to us, to our advice.
The bro science.
Exactly.
The Venus bro science.
I'm just kidding, but yeah, we're just experts. We're at the bottom there, but we're telling you how it is so that you can make more informed opinions. Okay, so which one is the most common in nutrition and the medical field? I'm assuming those are the randomized trials. What would you say is what people use the most to try to promote their ideas or perspectives?
So probably you would be looking at a lot of cohort studies, which can look at people, they'll do questionnaires looking at what people eat every few months. They'll get another questionnaire just to get an idea, and then they follow them for 20 years sometimes and see if different aspects of their diets can influence different rates of progressing into a disease state.
So the biggest example of this would be the EPIC study right now?
EPIC study is an ongoing one, which is huge. I think over 500,000 people. Yeah, so that one's great. And actually another study design, which I didn't mention earlier, is a cross-sectional study design, which is used in a lot of epidemiological studies, where they just take a snapshot in time, so they don't follow them for any period of time. They just say, okay, this population eats so much of this food right now, and they suffer from this much of this disease right now. So it's just how things are at the moment.
Right.
So those are also prone to a lot of different biases, so they're not the best.
So obviously people on the internet, or anyone that has a strong opinion about something or wants to learn about something, is sent or searches and finds one of these types of studies. How does someone find if a study is reliable enough or not? And even with the highest power ones like meta-analyses, you can go wrong there as well. Like if a meta-analysis is made of many bad studies, that is also possible, and a meta-analysis can end up pretty poor. So how can we find out if those studies that we look at, or even meta-analyses, are of good quality?
Yeah, and you've touched that's probably the most important question to be asking, because like you said, there are these internet warriors just throwing, I found this study, this proves that I'm right.
Yeah.
And this hierarchy here, the most important thing about this hierarchy, the best quality evidence is actually not on here. The best quality evidence is when something has been studied multiple times by various independent organizations coming to the same conclusions. So no matter what quality of evidence we're talking, even meta-analysis and systematic reviews, one study never proves anything. A study is one piece to a large puzzle. So basically, good examples of this would be, for example, when processed and red meats were classified by the World Health Organization as carcinogens, that took 22 of the leading experts going over 800 studies, or more than 800 studies actually, to come to those conclusions. And this was studies from all over the world done by independent organizations.
Yeah.
So obviously that is way, way more powerful than one meta-analysis or one systematic review. And like you said, if a meta-analysis is made up of a lot of bad studies, and unfortunately a lot of times these are industry-funded studies, then of course you can come to very, very wrong conclusions. So you always have to be skeptical while looking at these studies, for sure.
Yeah, exactly, and the financial incentive is so important to touch on as well, because you know, if you have access to the full studies, you can actually see who is funding it. And even with the meta-analyses, there are probably meta-analyses that are heavily funded as well.
Absolutely,
to promote a point. So with the red meat example that you just gave, just think about who's there to benefit financially from saying that you know, animal products are bad for you and can potentially cause cancer. Like the vegan industry or
big broccoli.
Exactly, big broccoli. So you know, the chances are very low that broccoli has that much money, as opposed to, you know, the meat industry and the animal industry, which is, you know, trillions of dollars and a massive influence financially.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem, is one of transparency, because this is a very esoteric field where only people who have access to the full studies can actually go through.
That's the problem, not everyone has access.
Exactly, yeah.
Almost no one has access.
And you know, if you had access and you looked through the whole thing, you would see how ridiculous some of these studies are.
Exactly.
Like the latest one, I was one of the videos I was making back in a couple months ago was talking about eggs and cholesterol, and I was looking at some of the studies there, and as soon as you look at the study design, you found out that these people are making conclusions that eggs do not increase LDL or bad cholesterol in people, because in their study it didn't raise cholesterol more than the control group. But when you look at what the control group was, they were eating sausage and cheese. So basically what they're saying is that eating eggs does not raise your cholesterol in comparison to eating sausage and cheese. So obviously, you know, that is...
And people use that as a good study, and they send it around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then not only just random internet trolls, even like doctors and you know, people with influence use these studies just because they don't even know how it was made themselves, and no one else can find out unless you pay a lot of money for these studies and actually look through it. And if you do, you'll be like 0.1% of the population who actually will bother doing this.
I would say the biggest conglomeration of studies being done will be by the big health organizations. So World Health Organization, the Dietetics Associations, these big organizations are going through a lot of papers and putting them together, because obviously a random person sitting at home won't have the time to go over 800 studies on their own time, or even buy the access to all of those studies.
Exactly.
So basically, always keep it in mind, don't listen to media outlet news stories, don't listen to expert opinions like what we are saying. Check this stuff for yourself. Don't listen to some random doctor, even if he is a brilliant doctor, a brilliant surgeon, a brilliant hematologist, it doesn't matter. Expert opinion is the very bottom ranking piece of evidence. And then obviously, other than that, look for again the industry funding, the financial conflicts of interest. A lot of these organizations don't have anything to gain from telling you that like meat is cancerous, and most of the dietary organizations, the largest organizations in the world, have come out and said that plant-based diets are adequate for all stages of life, including breastfeeding, pregnancy, infancy, older age, athletes. So basically, whenever you hear a doctor saying that this is wrong or that you need to eat meat, you're basing your opinion on one person's personal preference or belief over that of the conglomeration of all the studies done by all the biggest organizations in the world.
And even those studies, don't take them for, you know, like as 100% true facts.
No,
like those
for sure.
Those big organizations can be prone to biases themselves and decide what to publish, what not to publish, I guess. But also, like, you know, things can come out, they can do better studies and find new things out. So it doesn't mean that the thing that they find is 100% like correct and set in stone. But it's the best we have, and we should be open-minded to them.
If anything, the only thing I would add is to try to teach everyone, or to give you guys an idea of how to think as a scientist. I'll give you the 3 tenets of science, or what science is based on, compared to what traditional knowledge like religions and stuff like this is based on. So number 1, science is actually based on the Latin injunction ignoramus, which means we don't know. So the fact that we don't know allows us to look and try to discover new things. Number two is that we assume that things we think we know now could be proven wrong as we gain more information and gain more knowledge. And then number three is the centrality of observations and mathematics, where we make objective observations and then put them into comprehensive theories to try to understand how the world works. And obviously the more information we have, the more sure we become of something. But it's very, very rare in the scientific world to be 100% sure of anything.
It should be impossible. I mean, how can you know everything? And a lot of people and experts, unfortunately, portray themselves as someone that knows everything, and they're absolutely certain about different things, and it's just not true. It's not possible. So just be skeptical, be open-minded at the same time, but most importantly, don't take advice without doing your own research. And if you're really serious about this stuff, you have to take these steps. You have to learn about this, because without this information, without knowing what to look for, it's really hard to make informed decisions about your own health. So please, if you take anything out of this video, make sure that you learn how to read these studies, or see how the hierarchy of different studies that you're looking at works, and trust the better ones, and try to disregard the lower ones as much as possible.
Obviously, expert opinions are not all the same. Some opinions are worth more than others, but the important thing to take away is that it's never set in stone. One person's opinion can never be taken as fact. And then the other thing is to always keep in mind, when you're taking someone's opinion, is always think, where is the money? Where does the money go?
Yeah.
And think, does that person truly have your best interest at heart? Because like me and John are standing here, we're not trying to sell you anything. We're not trying to sell you the vegan agenda. We are biased
Broccoli
against
and vegetables.
We're biased against veganism.
Yeah.
We grew up eating meat and eating
Yeah.
dairy and eating all this kind of stuff. It's just, as a scientist, I saw the evidence and I changed my ways. And this is something that a lot of people, unfortunately, the emotional aspect trumps the rational very many times. But just try to keep an objective, rational mind and try to make the best decision from there. It's not easy, and you will sometimes make mistakes, but if everyone is transparent and we're all helping each other, we can definitely make big steps in taking our health into our own hands.
Yeah, so if you guys want to see more videos from me and Leo while he's staying over for the Christmas holidays, let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to his channel as well. He has his own YouTube channel and Instagram as well. I have an Instagram as well, so everything is linked in the description box. Go follow him, and stay tuned for a lot more videos. Peace out.